Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Narelle Doan, and I'm excited to present this event to you today. We are going to be talking about reimagining dementia care. I'm excited to present a great group of panelists to you today. We have Nicole Will, James Lee, Carrie Alberts, Adria Thompson, and Joshua Schwartz. And let's get the conversation going.
Let's do it. Hi, everyone.
Hi, thanks for joining us today.
We're excited to be here. Thank you.
Yes. Carrie, if you want to take a minute, start off the introductions, tell us about yourself, and then we'll move on to Adrian, Nicole, and James, and Josh as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So just a little bit about me. I go as Dementia Darling, and I am an advocate and educator for the dementia community. I am here to be a cheerleader for dementia caregivers, to help and push for change and better quality of life and fight that tragedy narrative. So I'm really excited to be here with these group of amazing people. So I'll go about talking about a little bit about the Hogevik once everyone says a little bit about themselves. Thanks for being here.
I'll go next. My name is Adria Thompson. I own Be Like Care Consulting, where I create hundreds of videos all about dementia. To learn more about dementia and to learn how to care for individuals with dementia. I'm also a lecturer at Eastern Kentucky University in the Communication Sciences and Disorders Department. Nicole?
Yeah, Nicole Will, founder of Will Gather and host of the Will Gather podcast, Navigating the World with Your Aging Loved Ones. And I love to highlight those important voices and amplify support systems for older adults, caregivers, healthcare professionals. So happy to be here.
Hi, everyone. I'm James. I'm James Lee. I'm a small business owner and operator of a dementia care community in San Antonio called Bella Groves. And also started a think tank, which is where I take all the people that I'm fans of and I force them to become my friends through this experience. And I love talking about dementia. I love conversations like this one, so I won't delay it any further.
Hi, everyone. My name is Josh Schwartz. I'm the president of Viking Pure Solutions. We manufacture a patented piece of equipment that produces all natural cleaning and disinfecting solutions. Our biggest segment and the one that we're most passionate about is senior living, and then specifically working with memory care facilities to help replace their harsh and toxic chemicals with our all natural, non-toxic, and completely safe cleaning and disinfecting solutions, keep the facility safe, and most importantly, our treasured residents safe. So thank you all for joining today.
Wonderful. Before we get started, I just want to point out the Q&A box on the right-hand side. And if you're joining us on LinkedIn, just put in a comment and we will be sure to address your questions at the end. So Carrie, if you want to kick it off and tell us a little bit about the Hogevik, and then Nicole or James, if you want to tell us a little bit about your visit last year before we get into the questions today.
So first off, do you ever have those words, especially in a different language, that every time it comes out of your mouth, it's a different version? That's Hogevik for me. So in just this couple sentences, I will probably pronounce it 4 different ways. But it comes out randomly every time, so I apologize. I'm really trying, but the group says it much better than me. But I'm gonna go with Hogevik for the beginning because I feel like that's more on the nose than what I've been saying, Hogevik. So sorry ahead of time on that. But Hogevik opened in 2009. So it's been around for a hot minute. It's been dubbed the first dementia village in the world. Hogevik is a self-contained village that offers a prepared environment for people living with later stages of dementia. The Hogevik is like any other neighborhood, a neighborhood that is part of a broader society in the town of Weesp, Netherlands. This is right outside of Amsterdam, where we went for our trip. They display a true amazing shift for nursing home environments. For example, just for me personally, I know our group, we did not realize it was nursing home level of care, which was mind-blowing. This care village offers, grocery store, restaurant, other typical village amenities that residents can access freely. And it's truly an actual village, a neighborhood, a place of community. They are focused on the social model of care compared to what we're used to with the medical model of care we often see in the US. And the Hogevik is funded by government funding in the Netherlands, which subsidizes the care, which is incredible and I think really admirable work. So that's a little bit to tell you about what we were going into, and it was such an honor for us to go. I know all of us dementia nerds, this is like the mecca of seeing, what is the first dementia village like. And so yeah, that was a little bit about Hogevik. I hope that helps paint a picture for you.
Awesome, thank you. Nicole, do you want to tell us a little bit about your trip last year?
Yeah, visiting, I really didn't know what to expect. So it was really fun to walk in and see that you were really entering a real community. We noticed that it is residents and the staff are contributing to that daily fabric of life. So people are walking around and shopping and cooking and socializing and having this sense of normalcy and purpose. I also had this awareness that there was a lot of inherent risk present, right? Second story balconies, cobblestone, the paths were not smooth, the brick. It was just a striking difference from a traditional care model to having this community, right? It was home, and there were not staff uniforms or name tags. And so it was, at times it was hard to distinguish who was a care support, who was a resident, but it really just felt that one difference really created the sense of that you were in a normal town. And I do the quotes because what I also felt was that I noticed how our language and what we use, home-like, normal, right? All of that. I was really mindful of that because it's home, it's their environment. And so catching myself when I was talking about it or there and sharing about it was so interesting for me. And I just really loved how there was music and a vibrancy present. And to Carrie's point, you wouldn't know that it was a nursing home level of care. So I think that it was just fun to see how the different program options that were available and all of the different lifestyles and how they created different models, the different lifestyles and their pillars of care of like having those favorable surroundings, having urban, traditional, cultural, being in environments that you identified with and you could really live that out. So those are my initial thoughts on that. I know James and Adria can expand, but.
Yeah, I can go from there. I also, we really enjoyed visiting, and I want to give a little bit of background maybe as to why we were there and how it kind of came about. So Carrie and Nicole were going to be in Europe anyway for a different event. I was going to be in Europe for another event, and I was like, oh my gosh, what if we all just went to the Hogevik, which I'd always heard of, like through viral videos and things like that. Being a dementia nerd, as we said. And so I just asked them, like, would you be interested? And they were like, heck yeah. So we reached out. And so anyone watching, like, you can go visit. There is a cost associated. And then we roped James into this because we wanted a lot of perspective. We are not operators of memory care communities ourselves. So James was a really helpful voice to kind of give us that perspective. And it was, I think, a solid group. Like having 4 people, I think is really good. We had ample time. We were there for like 10 hours. And we had a lot of fun. I would say so. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. So much fun.
I'll round out, our introduction here and then kick it over for questions and discussions and everything for us. So, for they say roped me into it. I asked if I could go. They're being very polite. I was like, can I please tag along? Because I'd always wanted to visit. And I think the spirit of this, though, is you find amazing people who are just doing it, just going, just doing these things. And so, I did tag along and thought, well, maybe we can make this part of a think tank project. And so then we reached out to our friends at Viking Pure. And if you're wondering, why are they talking on a Viking Pure webinar? It's because it took all of us on the screen to make this possible. And I think that's the spirit of what I took away personally from our experience there, is that we can go create these opportunities ourselves. You just have to have an idea. You got to reach out to wonderful people, wonderful organizations. I'm sure behind the scenes, Viking Pure was like, why are we going to sponsor a group of people to go visit the Dementia Village? But the truth is, we all connected on the idea of, let's reimagine stuff. Like Viking Pure is reimagining about sanitation and cleanliness, and the four of us who got to go in all of our own ways, we really have specific visions of how things should be that they're currently not. Is that an appropriate grammatical sentence? I think so. So I had a really, really wonderful experience, and I hope we get to unpack some of that here today.
Awesome. Thank you for that. So let's kick it off with the first question. We've kind of got an overview of your experience there, but I want to get into the meat of today's topic, which is, what are some of the specific innovations that you all noticed during your visit, or that have occurred to you in your reflections since your return from the Hogevik?
I can start. I was thinking about innovations when we decided this is kind of going to be the theme of this panel. And my mind immediately goes to technology. I don't know about you guys. And it's interesting because when we were at the Hogevik thinking about technology, we were like, okay, tell us about all the amazing technology that you have that makes this like the first and best dementia village in the world. And they were like, we have speakers that we can like listen if someone's getting up in the middle of the night, or like if there's a loud crash. That's like about it. Like we have doors that lock and unlock with a button. Like they're not necessarily like the center of technology, like all the new biggest best stuff. And I don't know about you guys, but in some ways I was like kind of disappointed. But then like upon reflection now, I'm like, okay, actually that's really cool. And that in itself is innovation. Like, because I like Googled, honestly, the definition of innovation leading up to this, because I was like, why do I think about technology immediately? And innovation is just introducing something new, or like a significant improvement, or like thinking of something in a different way. They absolutely are doing that. So I figured I'd just start with that part of innovation, because maybe some of the people watching think about technology too. I don't know if you guys had the same thought.
Completely, Adrian. I will go off of that, because that's literally what I was talking about at CES this year, was with the Age Tech Collaborative, was what else is actually age tech. It's not all just technology, even in the age tech world, and that has tech in it, but it's also these new innovative ideas. Like you said, it's color theory in dementia care. That's an innovation. So using these different ways, and what I thought about the innovation was truly the different types of living apartments they had, the different way they styled based on how the person grew up. So it's a familiar home-like environment. That's innovation. Each area should look different. It should, in your area. And what we're dealing with here is the medical model, where it's cookie cutter. Everything looks the same. And I think we can do a lot with changing, little things and making things more not home-like, but home. And that was innovative for me, as being like, okay, they can live in a cosmopolitan apartment or the traditional farm apartment. That is so cool. And that is something I think is more accessible than expensive technology.
Yeah. I mean, really what they're doing, we can truly implement the values of that regardless of our, building structure. And there was, the innovation in choice and autonomy. And we think, okay, we give our residents choice, or we say that we like to do that, but are we actually truly doing that? Their idea of programming was, how many different clubs did they have? So many different clubs. Yeah. And you could, like we do, right? I want to go to a Pilates class. I'm going to pay for that class. I want to take an art class. I'm going to do that based on the interests that I have, that I want to incorporate all of these different club ideas into my life. And so the choice there, and just the expansive amount of ability to have that autonomy, I thought made that really personal and innovative in that way, because now a lot of it looks like we have a programming calendar at a certain time, and we want to implement that, but how do we really meaningfully give the choice and autonomy?
Yeah. I like Josephine's question, Josephine Tite. She said, innovation can be thought of as an activity or even an approach. Maybe the question is, what isn't innovation? My answer, my thought on that is, what isn't innovation is operational effectiveness, operational efficiency. And I think as an operator on the senior living side, I've grown up in a world of like, just get better at your process, get good at your operations, fine tune the sales and the employment hiring process, and those things aren't innovation. And we as a business oftentimes put kind of fluffy words around it and say this is, we're innovative because we're providing really great care. And it made me think about bridging off of all of my team members here, that good dementia care is visible, great dementia care is invisible. And then when I was walking around the Hoogevik, that's my pronunciation of it. When I was walking around the Hoogevik, I seriously, Adria was probably thinking there's no technology here. And I was walking around for the first hour like, okay, this is it? I wanted to see like some fancy approach, or it's like something that they were going to do that I was like, oh, okay, this is it. This is the Hoogevik. And I thought, and then the longer I was there, and specifically now that I've had time to reflect, I realized, we didn't see a lot of the traditional dementia care environment stuff, like a lot of behavioral expressions, and we didn't see all of that because great dementia care is invisible. You don't know what's happening, and that's kind of the point.
I would be okay. So I have the thought of like innovation has to, in some ways, is probably risky, right?
Totally, yeah.
Because I think for myself and maybe Carrie and Nicole, like we're, for the most part, solo entrepreneurs, right? Like we carry risk on ourselves. Like if we make a business decision, it's only going to impact us. So it feels like for me, I feel a little bit more risky. No, I feel like I can make a risk because the consequences to me. But I think probably James and Josh, you can probably speak to being an innovator in your space, how that risk could be major, like not only for yourself, but for other people too.
Yeah. I appreciate calling out Josh. If we don't call Josh, he won't be able to speak in between the four of us. Josh, just raise your hand if you want to blink twice if you want to contribute.
I just love listening to everyone on this call and your passion, and I'm just honored we could play, some very small part, in your trip to really a special and well-known place in this arena. I'll just say very quickly, and not even to answer the question, but this week I was interviewing an engineer to come join our company, and unfortunately she's, her father now is battling dementia, and she was up visiting him out of state, helping handle his care. And I mentioned this, and you guys go to Hoogevik, and she completely 100% knew about it, was talking about it, and then the whole interview ended up, turning into us talking about this and our passion as a company to, work in this space and do whatever we can to try to, normalize and, for kind of the residents in these communities in different ways. So even some of our clients even have residents who are now doing their own kind of cleaning and disinfecting using our products in their own rooms, which they could never do with any other type of product except ours, which there's no hazard if it gets in your skin or in your mouth or in your eyes. And it's really an amazing thing. And it sounds so small, but it's just a little tidbit and way to, add a little normalcy and purpose to, a day and kind of remembrance. So, we're happy that, we can do kind of our little part to, add to the lives of, all the residents in these different centers.
Yeah. I want to answer Adria's question too, and also bridge what Josh just said. So they hate when I plug Viking Pure because they're like, that's not the point of why we ask you, but I can't help it. So we utilize Viking Pure at Bella Groves, and this is how I'm going to tie in Adria's thought and question to it. Innovation is risky. And I think maybe the second part of maybe what Josephine's question also implied is When you choose an innovation, when you choose a strategy, you have to be able to say the trade-off. You have to be able to say, this is the thing that we're doing, that this innovation or this approach, this is what we believe, and we're trading off this other standard status quo thing that happens. So, for us at Bella Groves, one of the things we like, the concept of universal care workers, that's not entirely new. But the idea that we don't have a caregiver or a med tech in like different positions. If you think about family caregivers, they're one thing. They are one size fits all. I have to do everything. I have to cook for my mom. I've got to entertain my mom. I've got to help her with a shower. They adopt all of these roles. So I think innovation is we're choosing, okay, we're trading off having all of these disciplines within dementia care and senior living, and we're trying to figure out how do we do that so that one person can accomplish all of that. So our innovation is education. We got to train and we got to create an operating model that supports plenty of caregivers doing what they do. So we do have residents who will push the little housekeeping cart around and they will spray down with Viking Pure and they'll spray things down. They'll set the table, they'll clean up afterwards. And somebody walking in, just like I did with the Hogeveg, somebody walking in might say, well, this is a pleasant environment that I don't see what's innovative here. That's kind of the point, is like great dementia care is invisible. It just feels like a nice environment.
I love that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think moving slightly on, I think it was Adria last time who shared more about the Hogeveg's approach to identifying residents' life interests and matching them with related activities or events within the community. And earlier on this call, you guys had talked about how many groups they had had. Can you guys talk a little bit more about how the Hogeveg identifies these life interest pairings and whether there's an assessment used, or how are they matching people to interests and clubs and groups that they have available?
Yeah, there's 4 main lifestyles of the Hogeveg that Carrie was referring to earlier. They are titled traditional, urban, formal, and cosmopolitan. And I think you could probably gather some information based on their titles, but basically they look at how a person has lived their life. Some of that information might come from where they lived, right? So if they're more rural areas of the Netherlands, out on a farm, they might be a little bit more traditional in nature versus someone who lives in the center of Amsterdam that had that might be more cosmopolitan or urban. And so they definitely consider location. They consider just like the person's personality. I don't know, maybe one of you might know specifically if they use a specific assessment. I imagine that it's similar to a lot of assessments that we use in senior care in the United States, which is just asking questions about what's their favorite music, where did they grow up, what are their interests, and it helps kind of determine what category they might belong into. And I don't know if category is the right word because it is very person-centered, but for descriptive purposes, I think that works. So it's the purpose of that is to identify people who have things in common so that they can live amongst them. And so that you can like have something in common with your roommate, not roommate, but like housemate, I guess. And I'll let someone else kind of describe maybe like even the decor and how that looks different.
Well, and just on top, going on top of that too, I don't know how they do the assessment. I'm sure it's, as you said, very similar to kind of, doing interviews with the family and the person as much as possible. But do you guys remember when a woman was leaving to tennis lessons with a family member?
Yeah.
So they really pull on their community. So I think someone else's family member took another woman to, like, it wasn't her mom, I don't think, and took her to tennis and took her out of the village, and so those are things they really lean on their community. And I know I saw, and I promise we'll talk about the decor, but Gary, was saying, how do they maybe embrace their family members and things like that? It's really, they do education from day one. I mean, before you move in, they're educating their families on the process and how they do things and how their outlook is. And I think that invites the families and makes them comfortable to be of service and to be in the community and to feel that they're invited to take part in their person's life and the other people's lives, because we're all in this neighborhood together. So I really was taken aback by that woman leaving for tennis. And in my head, I'm thinking, no one's going to go with her from the community. Is she okay? You know, it's like, what? She's fine. They walked down the street and went and played tennis and came back. How beautiful. So I just wanted to throw that out there, but that really stuck with me. I don't know if anyone else.
We might have accidentally seen a kidnapping. I don't know if we. Yeah, it is a really good point though about the entire community and the people around it have to support it. I was surprised that the Hogevik wasn't like, it's world famous to us, but everybody else, you know, in the area is like, oh yeah, just like to them it's just another place that's there. So I'm not even sure that they know it, because I think we wanted to ask like. We did ask, like, do you have an endless wait list of care staff here? You must have people like who just, you know, and they're like, no, we're just like any other place. You know, we have our employment, you know, issues like anyone else. So I think, you know, the practical thing, I know the spirit of having conversations like this is not just recounting, you know, what fun we had, but like, what can we do to bring it back here? You know, we're not going to all build dementia villages. So one of the things, like Nicole mentioned it, and we're all talking about it in pieces, that innovation has to be, what mindset are you going to have about what dementia is, and then you got to execute that thing. So for us, you know, we've naturally learned that the volunteer group at Bella Groves is starting to get really robust. So we realized, okay, we got to assign somebody, a volunteer coordinator, to manage this and then be tied into the vision of Bella Groves. So in simple, if we're saying we're trying to change the perception of dementia as something that's just a tragic thing that happens to, nope, you can actually achieve joy. And we feel like that's a good North Star. Then you have to employ, you know, through volunteers, your own team, partners, you got to find every possible resource to accomplish that. So I think normal living is the thing, you know, I think Nicole gravitated to a lot, but we saw that there. And the over medicalized model of dementia care, however it was that it got started in senior living, I think we just adopted, well, the medical community must know must understand it and know the most about dementia. So let's listen to them and then apply that in a residential center. And I think, you know, the Hogevik and places that innovate are really starting to show the reverse. Medical is a part of what you do, but lifestyle and social factors and mindset and training, these are all things that matter far more in the end.
Right.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, having new ways of thinking after that, right? So innovation in my own work looks like, and learning from Adria and in conversation with James and Carrie, is I do a lot of sharing about people living with dementia, and I do a lot of, you know, educating with different experts and educators. But I realized that I wasn't as including people living with dementia as much in those conversations. So it shifted how I do my work, right? Having a panel of 4 people living with dementia on my podcast, continuing those conversations, asking what their experience is like, what they wish we would know. I'm doing an interview with residents in a care community to ask, how do you have care received? What thoughts and emotions come up for you? How has it shifted in the way that you do life in the community? And just asking more questions, and that whole, I know James and I've said that with, not for, right? Like, how do we do that with? And this was the beginning of that for me, and having those conversations, I feel, is just, yeah, it's important. And we can also, I think it would be really cool to expand on what we brought back with that information and our think tank project, and what we gathered from 500 and some people on the survey about reimagining dementia, and asking those questions. So I'm sure we'll dive into that, but that'd be really cool to explore.
Yeah, I agree, Nicole. It totally changed how I'm looking at things and who I'm asking what kind of questions, and being really mindful of that. And with our think tank project, I found it so interesting to finally take the time to say to just any person, what would you want if you were living with dementia? What is important? And as you said, I think we were surprised a little bit at the results. And I want to keep doing that kind of analysis. I want to keep growing on these topics because that's how we can better our future for all of us and the people that are, living now with dementia. So I was so excited that we were able to take that and then bring it into that study. And I look forward to the next part that we can come up with to keep the conversation going.
Awesome. I think one question in the innovation space too is on the training side of things. So how did you guys see the Hogevik is training their hands-on personnel to make sure they're reducing the feeling of warehousing and rote engagement, especially for activities of daily living care in the dementia space?
Yeah, I think we didn't get a clear answer on that when we were there, and it's not like we saw a training, happen in person. But what I can gather from it, I think maybe Adria has more concrete information on this, but I think all caregivers in the Netherlands have to go through a certain period of time of certification or training, which is not the case here in Texas. You can give them, your 8 hours of online training, and you're now certified to deliver dementia care. But is that right, Adria, that it was a certain length of time?
I think
Like
so.
a year,
Yeah.
2 years, something?
I think it was a 2-year
There's some
years of
baseline that,
education.
yeah, there's some baseline, whether you're at this nursing facility or the Hogevik, you have to have some baseline of that. But the thing, and there was a question that kind of asked about, are there traditional non-pharma approaches to dementia care, music, other things that can be applied here and at home? And then I'll try to tie in Gary's question about the next generation as well. I believe, from my point of view and the work that we're doing at Bella Groves, we will never build enough dementia care communities, whether it's the dementia village or whatever other model. We will never build enough to take care of everybody. So I really think the most innovative work is figuring out, how do we get this to people at home in real time and earlier in the process? Most of our customers in senior living will never, or most of our prospective customers will never enter senior living. So what do we do about all of them? So I think educating people, what I learned from the Hogevik that I didn't see in person, because again, great dementia care is invisible. They had 7 pillars. And so I can gather from just the fact that these are like their principles and they teach it. So things like favorable surroundings, lifestyle, health, life's pleasures. I love that one as a pillar. The meaning of life's pleasures. Formal and informal networks, which is something that we touched on. The organization itself, I think that's a really important part of all of this, is that the business structure, the organization has to support the methodology and mindset. That's a huge change that needs to happen. And social inclusion and emancipation, I could gather from the time there that these are all things that were integrated. We didn't see, like, hey guys, look, this is the emancipation part. It's just, again, it was kind of invisible. But if we're going to apply any of this back home, we have to think about what are the 90% of people who are age and income qualified that don't choose senior living, and how do we help those folks?
Yeah, I kind of want to call on Nicole for this, because this is something that you have been talking about for a long time, is the community aspect of being a hub, and helping the community. Can you just say what your vision is? Because it's a dream.
Yeah, I believe that, like James was saying, how are we educating, and what does that look like if a lot of the people that are going through these life phases are not in a community yet, or might not be in a community at some point. And so senior living, when we think about it, we have the passion, we have the education, we have the support system, but most families do not view senior living as where they go to for that support and that information and resource. And so to have it be a hub, a place where we've curated ideas and education and care influencers and caregiver support companies and age tech that can support them 5-10 years prior to that move-in. We've built that relationship. We have that social impact in the community. We become a place of knowledge and empowerment for families and older adults that are in this time of life. so that if and when they do need to make that decision, we've built that relationship over time, we've built that trust over time, and that would be the natural progression of maybe that next step. Or they'd feel equipped, and we know we've done our part, having all of that education ourselves to be able to impart those information to the family so they feel empowered to then make the best choice. Because isn't that what we want? We want families and older adults in our communities that want to be there and that really have a desire and a need for the actual care that we provide. And so I just feel so strongly about how are we doing that in senior living. Do we even have knowledge of what is all available to families from an education standpoint, from a support system standpoint, that we can then share that with them? So I think there needs to be, rather than have it be like care economy over here and senior living over here, I think there's room to come together and to be able to support each other in all of those phases.
When that's only a win-win for everyone, because as we're saying with the social model and being in your community, bring your community in, be a part of your community, be a hub, have your doors open, and that only benefits your residents who want to be in community and want to have purpose and want to connect. They're already living behind locked doors. What are we doing to give them a taste of going outside of those? If we can't open the doors, what are we bringing to them? What are we giving them opportunities to do if they have to live behind locked doors, for goodness sakes? We need to be doing more to give them a community they deserve outside of those doors.
Absolutely. And it's good for other generations too. Like, bringing families, bringing kids in, like that's great for the kids too.
My first job was in an intergenerational adult daycare center. It was the most magical time of my life. It was so beautiful watching children literally grow up with 50 grandmas and grandpas and having the parents in between feel loved and supported and getting knowledge from elders. That knowledge doesn't go away with dementia. They can still give love and knowledge and support and wisdom. And we need to give them those opportunities to do so. And it needs to go past what we're, thinking is enough right now, because I'm not seeing that it's enough. And I know COVID really made us separate, but we need to start finding our way back to community.
It's beautiful.
Sorry, I got really intense.
No,
that's
very. I wish you were more passionate in your responses.
Yeah, right.
Dial it up a little bit.
I also, the Hoikavik having their restaurant was open to the public. It was a full functioning restaurant that anyone in the community could come to and interact with, the residents, along with their other theater and different events that they had. So I think that whole idea of, we have these places and spaces, how are we utilizing those in ways that just benefit the whole? Yeah.
I think go ahead.
Well, I wanted to piggyback off of something Nicole said, that most people who are affected by dementia, both the people living with it and their care partners, Nicole's right. The vast majority of them don't see senior living as the source to go get information. It's senior living or something else. And if you look at actually my three travel buddies here, if you look at like their work and their social media, it's filled with people who are looking for the alternative to senior living as the hub of resources. And guys, if you're in senior living operations like I am, that is a huge opportunity for innovation. We should have all of the resources, all of the connections to be able to put that in some kind of a channel and then distribute it. But out of necessity, it has created the need for Carrie and Adria and Nicole to go out there and educate people. I'm not saying run them out of business. They'll be around forever. But senior living has to transform into the hub. With what we're doing, we're a 32 bed community in a little town outside of San Antonio, but we are showing and we're proving to people that our mindset and our approach, we don't have fancy technologies. We don't have all of this stuff that Adria was looking for at the Hoikavik, but we have a very, very clear plan. And we're trying to execute that. So, all of the implied questions about what are the innovations from the Hogevik that we can bring back, I really think that the big thing for me is that they're executing a simple vision. Their vision 20 years ago was, let's create normal living for people living with dementia. And they were so dedicated to that all the programs and ideas and things that that ensued, it was just a natural consequence of the original simple idea, which is let's create normal living. So I think we need to stop looking for what the golden egg is and just get back to what is the simple thing we hold in our hearts, and then how do we execute that? And small businesses can have a huge impact in that.
And that normalcy and simplicity that they have took work, which seems like counterintuitive, right? Like it seems like, oh, well, then it like creating the world's first dementia village, if it's so simple, so natural, like it probably didn't take much work, but it was like, so, I mean, it's so hard. It's so hard to change the model of medical dementia care. I've had a really like strange experience the last couple of weeks in that for the first 8 years of my life, I worked as a speech language pathologist in skilled nursing facilities, assisted living, blah, 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 home health. Okay. And the last 2 years, I've been focusing on dementia education and innovation and networking and connection with people who are doing big things in the world of dementia care. And just recently, now that I've settled down, I move a lot, but now that I've kind of settled down, I've been reconnecting with some of these companies I've worked with, people that I've worked with in the past, and sharing with them things that I've learned, sharing about the Hogevik, sharing about all of these awesome, amazing things that are happening in the senior care world, especially in the area of dementia. I kind of feel this like, so what attitude? Like, well, that's great for like those people who are doing it. But it just seems to be the same world that I left about 2.5 years ago. Like they're doing the same things. I talk about like what's new, like, oh, well, last month we had 3 falls and this month we only had 1. And it's like, okay, okay. I just don't know, like, how do we get people outside of the procedural day-to-day, the following the policies, the checking off the list, like, and I know that not everybody is going to be innovative and like have that pursuit of change when things just feel like they're working okay. I don't know, what's the motivator to make modifications? I don't know, because I get so excited about things and then I talk to people, and there are wonderful people in the senior living industry, but then some are just like, well, we're good, thanks. Like, no thanks.
I feel triggered, Adria.
Explain yourself. No.
Yeah. No, definitely not speaking on behalf of an entire industry here, but I really appreciate that point, because it's like, what incentive is there to change and to innovate because I agree, a lot of the conversations, if you look around senior living, if you pull up LinkedIn in the morning, we're talking about the same things now that we did 5, 10, 20 years ago. It's things about real estate and things about basis points and things that families, if they looked on LinkedIn and saw our profession, they'd be like, is anybody talking about care or dementia or innovation? So I think the incentive here, but a little bit of my thinkings behind Bella Groves. Before Bella Groves, I was on a traditional senior living corporate track. Most of my friends, most of my colleagues are on that track. So I believe in it. I believe that there's a lot of change that can happen. A little bit of what we're trying to do at Bella Groves is we kind of want to show people that not only is this the right outcome, not only are I could show you all of the business outcomes associated with it as a secondary measure of the primary thing that we're doing, which is creating wonderful, wonderful living for people at the end of their lives, regardless of the fact that they have dementia. And in a way, I'm trying to prove to people, proof of concept of Bella Groves is, look how successful they are. They're financially, successful. I almost want to show people like, here's the profit margin of Bella Groves. Once we add all of it in, not just from our residential care side, but the Dementia Navigator, the podcast, all of the different ways that we're eventually going to grow and serve people. I think, Adria, the answer to this, I wish it weren't the answer, but I think the answer is going to be, we're going to have to show people who are business motivated to see, oh, the right way to do this is also profitable. Yeah. And the risk bearers of that are going to be people like me, small business owners, people who can he'll say, "Yep, I'll be the first out of the gate to do that." And for me, I do see the change. I see the change of gatherings like ours. I mean, how many small group trips like this happened and then webinars happened afterwards? I haven't seen something like this. So this is part of that change. Think Tank has 50 people, but it's part of the change. So I do see it. And again, I'm really bullish on small business and entrepreneurs and people who can lead the charge there. And I think that if you make the business case for it, again, I wish that weren't the case. If you make the business case for it, then everybody else will follow. And in the end, if the result is more people get what they need and deserve, then c'est la vie.
Man, if only dignified care and quality of life were enough of a motivation.
Yeah.
How sad.
I feel weird saying it, but it's the thing that I think is actually true.
No, it is. It just breaks my heart as a soft-hearted person in this scary, hard world. It's just really sad. It's so disheartening that dignified care isn't enough of a drive to pay for quality training and quality support. And I just wish that was enough. The quality of life for the people that have lived these extraordinary lives and they deserve to be cared for, it's just, and so I hope to also inspire people to look at other ways
I'll plug a little bit and then I'll mute myself so I don't run off. But I will say that's where, when I say head and heart, this is what I mean, that the blend of, we have so many people in senior living that are all heart, that are all on that side of, I wish it were enough, but let's deal with the reality of where we are. And if you can do both, if you can bring the business sensibilities, show people, and I'm not saying like I want to go live on a yacht because I did a good thing. I think you can have social responsibility and be profitable and all that. But I think when I say head and heart, it's this screen. It's people like us saying, we see the social benefit, we see the goodness of what we need to create. We also have the business savvy to pull it off. And again, in the end, if others follow the model for financial incentive, I don't care as long as more people are receiving the care that they need.
Agreed.
I think that's a great thing. Maybe Josh, you could touch on this briefly with overcoming those barriers of, we're trying to create safer environments. We're trying to bring solutions in that get the toxic out and create, a better environment for these people who are more vulnerable. Maybe touch on that a little bit, if you would.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think, sadly, James touched on, the reality of the world, I guess, that, we have to fund all these initiatives and pay for them and, strength of spirit and heart, can't solve all these problems or, improve everyone's lives. And I guess for us, we're trying to do everything possible, to work with each of our clients to make these, cost neutral, cost savings so that this is, a switch to, safer solutions that also, won't affect the budget. And I guess, in the future, hope that, more vendors, are able to work with that and we can continue to, increase the offering of services. It's interesting, this idea of, technology or not, but if it's either technology or innovation or, change of protocols, whatever it is, hopefully, these can be accomplished without, changing anything from a business side so that, more and more, operators can, have better services and safer services, without it affecting, their bottom line or their ability, to operate and, their ability to not, to continue to increase the amount of lives that they can change and residents that they can serve.
Well, we have a couple of questions, and before we get to them, I would love just a quick, in terms of differences and things that you guys have seen, how do you think dementia care will look 5 years from now, 10 years from now, in the future, based off of these innovations? Because I feel like we have a very innovative forward-thinking group here, and what are your insights for the future?
Let me lay a foundation real quick of what this looks like 5 to 10 years with stats, because I looked this up and I think it's super interesting. Okay, according to Alzheimer's Disease International, they said that someone is diagnosed with dementia every 3 seconds. So currently, well, I guess as of 2020, there were 55 million people worldwide living with dementia. And that number is expected to double every 20 years. So in 2030, which we're looking at 5 years from now, there's going to be 78 million people living with dementia. And by 2050, the number of people with dementia will triple from what we're at right now. So just a little bit of like lay the foundation of what we're talking about here. This is like big time.
Thank you for saying that, Adria. And with those numbers, I've always believed since the days in my adult daycare days that adult daycare is the future and small homes are the future. I do not think people can go forward by paying for rent in these places. It's just, I mean, unless you're a doctor or scientist, whatever, I don't know, but it's insane. And the prices are only getting higher for the same level of care and, or the same quality of care. So I think small homes, residential assisted living homes that you're seeing pop up, Bella Grove type homes that are, you know, those amazing smaller businesses. I think those are the future, affordability wise, and aging in place as much as possible. Home care, being in the home as much as possible because of, at least in our country, pricing. There's just no way unless big change happens in that. And if we're getting cut on more things, it's going to be even harder. So I'll stop myself there.
I think there's also more of a conversation in our world right now around brain health. And so how do we integrate that into what we're doing, right, into dementia care? I think that's going to be a movement to have more of a focus, nutrition, strength training, movement, right, having other modalities that support that. I think having, looking at staffing, right, and how do we have people being creative in that? What models are we using? Having flexible work arrangements to just support how are we going to actually be able to provide care also in these environments. I think that is also a level of concern.
Yeah, I'll wrap up with thinking when you look at how much this is going to be prevalent for all of us, I think the future of dementia care 5 to 10 years and well beyond that is going to be education based. It's a DIY future where we are going to have to help more and more people DIY great dementia care. And I think senior living has to transform into like a showroom of, I call it the IKEA model of you don't go to IKEA to buy furniture, you go there to see what you can do with the furniture after you buy it. And so for us, a small 32-bed dementia care community, I want it to be a showcase for the people locally here around us that when we teach them about how do you look at hallucinations and what's the difference between that and a delusion. And we can teach them these nuances in a way that it feels practical to once the situation happens, here's what you do. And if you want to come see that in action, then, you know, come as a volunteer and we'll show that to you. So I think DIY is kind of obviously it's just a, you know, colloquial term to call it, but I think that's our future.
And I would add on that note, I think short form content is going to be helpful. Training that's not just like 4 hours, you have to sit down, consume a bunch of information, but education that caregivers who have little time and little mental space to learn things can learn things quickly, shortly, and as needed as they go. We also, in the Netherlands and in the United States, there's conversations about memory care is not being locked anymore. So whatever that looks like. So having no secure locked doors, that is always super interesting to me. And yeah, I think like Nicole said, we just need more options. We need more options for care rather than just the traditional models we have now. And there's a few governmental things that have been put in place, like the GUIDE program, which is really great at providing education to caregivers and potentially some respite also. And then some adult day centers that are similar, like the model of PACE program, the program of all-inclusive care for the elderly, that's through the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid, which has been around for about 5 years now, but I think it's growing, and I think it's super, super important to change the model of dementia care.
I also just want to throw in, because I being in the Age Tech Collaborative, Nicole and Adria are both in it as well. tech is coming, and it is going to become more affordable. Specifically, like things like I'm really excited about something called Composure. They're making the sleep blanket where they're putting out these sound waves to help people sleep in memory care. That's wild. That's exciting. They're getting great research out of it, and it's hopeful. Medication devices in the home to help people with medication management. There's so much tech. The thought of having the doors unlocked, okay, but we have sensors and we have tracking and we can make sure they're safe, but it's not going to be an alarm that scares everyone. Different ways to go about keeping people safe and living their best quality of life, whether it's in the home or community-wise, for their caregivers, platforms with education and short form content. All these things are going to be more and more available, which is amazing and gives me hope, because the more we can utilize accessible and the right type of tech, the right things, they can make everyone's life better and can truly change the way that we're able to show up for the people we care for.
That's great. In terms of questions, we had one from Gary asking about the Hogevik. What ideas did you see or learn about in the transition process of residents from their prior homes to the village, and how were other family members embraced by staff?
Does anyone remember what they said about talking about the dying process? Because they said like that was a really big part of their onboarding for the families. Does anyone remember?
Oh, go ahead, Adria.
Oh, no, go ahead, Nicole.
I was going to say, Iris, who hosted us, did a wonderful job. We had a lot of time to learn extensively about their vision and their model of care. They weren't very detailed in terms of exact forms or intake process, but what they were clear about is they felt really strongly about setting the expectations for families. So before a resident decided to move in, there was a very clear understanding of here's what we do, here's what we provide, here's our vision for that, so that there would be that understanding. So my assumption would be that because of the clear expectations ahead of time, that transition process would go well. And there were family members present. I know that they're integrated into the community and a part of the daily fabric of life.
And because in the Netherlands, this level of nursing home level care is paid for by the government, but you pay into it for taxes your whole life, of course. There's a certain criteria that a person has to meet to be able to be eligible to live in this community. And that requires an assessment from a professional like a nurse or so. And they have to be deemed a certain level. So when we say that people in the Hogevik live with moderate to moderately severe to severe dementia, we mean it. There's no private pay option. It's not like you can just like, oh, I'd like to live there. You have to be at a certain level, and someone has to assess you and deem that you are eligible.
Debbie asked, James touched on this, I think, briefly, but maybe we'll make sure we fill it out. Did you see any traditional non-pharma approaches to dementia care, things like music as medicine, therapeutic reminiscence, personalized engagement, spirituality at the Hogevik, and if any, what approaches did you see that could realistically be implemented in home-based dementia care?
Yeah, I think insights on the clubs is probably I think it's a sneaky way that they're executing all of their philosophies around this. But if I draw a parallel between all of their things, person-centeredness, which we talk about as a buzzword, I really saw the application of that, of placing people based on lifestyles and having clubs that are very focused on your personal interest. So I think the application of that at home here is to try to figure out how do we help families to take the things that make mom and enhance those things. And has anyone heard about the nun study? No? Oh gosh, we ran out of time, but Google it, look it up. The nun study, so like nuns, like Maria, and the nun study, Alzheimer's disease, but it'll give you some insight as to how strong lifestyle and purpose and daily routines matter. And I think that's all I can squeeze in 30 seconds.
Okay, great. We had a couple more questions, but I will be sure to give them to Carrie, Adria, James, and Nicole, and we'll get back to you. I think both Kevin and Gary had some additional questions. And folks, I will be following up later today with the recording from today's event, as well as any additional resources that you guys may enjoy. Feel free to reply to that email with any additional questions that you have, and I'll make sure that they get to the panelists. Thank you again for joining us. Carrie, Adria, Nicole, James, and Josh, really appreciate you joining me today for this conversation. It's been amazing, as always, and we look forward to talking with you again next time.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Bye, everyone.